this is Olivia Bethea. Today's discussion is with two people who are very near and dear to my heart. Permission to Be co-host Tommy Allgood and their partner Kris Dobek are joining us to share their perspectives on what Pride Month means to them and to each give us a glimpse into their journeys of love and acceptance of themselves as queer individuals. I believe it's hard to fully understand issues that don't impact you if you're not in relationship with those whose life experience is dramatically different from your own. So I'm always appreciative of those who are willing to share in ways that enhance my understanding of life in a way that I might have otherwise never considered. This conversation between Tommy, Kris, Becka, and I is an example of that. I hope you enjoy it.
Hello, and welcome to Permission to Be.
Let's hit him with the remix.
Oh, well, y'all got to change that.
Yes.
What do we do?
We leave our F-bombs in, and
Let's tell some stories.
As long as white people are bound, the people in power are bound, they're going to keep us bound to the same thing that they're bound to.
Out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks, and I think out of the overflow of the spirit, the body does.
Challenge some narratives.
Why is that the best that God could offer you?
Mike made it very clear that he did not want to get any of these questions beforehand. So he is getting this question live, raw, for the very first time.
This is...
And I feel like art is the expression of the heart where words fail.
raw,
oh my goodness, I have tears. Oh, y'all are killing it.
unfiltered.
I feel like that's gotta sound strange.
Permission to be.
Actually, my literary agent, when we were talking about what book might I write, he was like, I mean, A Black Man with Hope is an interesting book.
Oh, shit.
Welcome to Permission to Be. I'd like to say that this is our honor of Pride Month, but Pride Month is really 365 days a year. So, and this episode may or may not air during the actual technical capitalism 30-day recognition that Target and Amazon and whoever else decided to jump on that bandwagon.
We might try. It might not happen though.
We're gonna try. We're gonna try real hard. So hopefully you're all hearing this during Pride Month.
We're not gonna
And
try. We're just gonna try.
so y'all, we're coming to you hot with myself and Olivia tonight, and we are interviewing, and Tommy is the interviewee along with his magical partner Kris. And so welcome Tommy and Kris.
Hi. Hello.
Oh my gosh, what is that?
Because we don't know how our microphones work. It's a mess. Here's the thing. I'm here all the time, and you're essentially the guest. So I'm working to defer to you most of this.
Oh God, that's not how
I
this
mean,
works.
But like first, it's going to be equitable and conversational topics, but being equitable.
Okay, but
because they hear my voice all the time, and you're the new person.
I am the new person, but
thank you for being here.
Oh yeah, you're welcome.
So, y'all, I'm tickled. Sorry. I was just trying to focus.
Good luck.
I just lost cause. So, something that I don't think we have done.
Question: are we going to go back and put in all the other stuff the other recordings, all the technical?
Possibly, if I can get them. Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Glad that
just curious. And I might have to pee during this also.
So when he says might, it's a definite.
Yeah.
I mean, once you open the dam, it's just kind of like it's over.
Small bladder problems.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're coming to you with our bubbly cupcake prosecco.
Mm-hmm.
and we're on a time crunch because I have a 30-minute meeting that I have to attend right after this. But right now I'm present here. So
We got all the time. We got all the time.
I rudely cut you off, Becca, so my bad.
It's really, I mean, you know, you're the guest. I'm just. So, something that J Mays, you know, shared on the social media.
Wait, somebody else is here?
You're right.
Who else is here?
I introduced, but I did say that. I said.
Oh, did I miss that?
It blocked out. No, we missed that part. We didn't hear it because I didn't hear it either. So
I did not. I do apologize. I mentioned Olivia, but I just talked right through. So Olivia, hi.
Hi. Y'all are so funny. Or neither. He said someone else is here, and I was like,
girl, I looked at the participation thing like, who's in our Zoom?
I was like, somebody is hacked in our feed.
Y'all,
I'm with you.
Oh my gosh. I love each and every one of you so much. Okay. How you doing, Olivia?
I'm well.
That's all we get. I'm well.
I'm well.
That's okay.
I'm well, and it is well. How about that?
It is well with my soul. Yes. Okay. All right.
Back to what I was saying before. I really did not acknowledge Olivia, and I apologize. We have not done pronouns. Like, you know, Jay Mays was talking that for, you know, there's an expectation of like for allies to say, well, I want to know your pronouns so I can support you. And sorry, in my head, I just hear a white Karen. So like that's and that's very judgy of me because I also fall in that category. But
you are not a Karen. You may be white, but you're not a Karen.
I have my moments. I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, she's definitely a mama bear at sometimes.
I come for you.
Mm-hmm.
So Tommy, oh y'all, if you can see Tommy's face, like it is saying so much. So much.
This is why we don't do these live, because y'all don't need to see all this. Y'all don't need to see the faces.
Because
y'all
I
don't need to
consider
know the secrets.
I consider Tommy one of my closest friends. Anyways, okay, I'm centering myself. Decenter. We do not say our pronouns, which was my whole point of this about 5 minutes ago. So, I'll go first. My name is Becka. My pronouns, I identify as she, her, and I am going to share tonight that I do identify as bi. That is not something that I've shared before, but I would like to share that. And I'm married to a cis man.
Woo!
So, there you go. So
yes, we celebrate you.
Yes. Okay. Well. And who wants to go next? Who wants to say their?
I'll say mine because I'm sure that these other two are going to have us cracking up for a minute.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
So I'll just be brief. My name is Olivia. My pronouns are she, her, hers. That's it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that I'm speaking first. This is a very weird dynamic, but I'm gonna do it. So my name is Kris. My pronouns are they, them, theirs, and yeah, that's about it. I'm like going through the process of like rediscovering my comfortability with the name actually of Kris right now, or Christopher right now, because that's my full legal name. Yeah. But I think I'm still going to keep Kris. I just might change the spelling of the short. I just don't like how Christopher is tied to like the whole Saint Christopher with Catholicism. And
is that where yours derived from?
What?
Is that all Christopher?
No, but that's why my parents named me Christopher, was after Saint Christopher. And I just don't,
Because they're a good Sicilian family.
Correct. And I am the patron saint of traveling, I think. But y'all don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure I am.
I was thinking of the colonizer.
Oh, yeah, and that one too.
Columbus.
Right. And so it's the same
thought.
spelling as that too.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So that's fun.
Hey y'all, it's Tommy. My pronouns are they, he, any combination of they or he for now, subject to change. And we can talk more about that later on, I suppose. But yeah, thank you for leading with an invitation to introduce ourselves in our pronouns and honor that space of gender nonconformity.
I hope 10, maybe 20 years from now that this isn't the nuanced conversation that it is right now. You know, maybe that's very naive to think for that short amount of time.
What do you mean? I'm not supposed to be interviewing her, but I'm curious. What do you mean?
I know. No, but what I mean by that is I hope that it's just an assumption. You come on and you say your pronouns, like that's what you do. Mm-hmm. You know, like it's Pride Month and we're being intentional about this. And I think all of that is wonderful. But the fact is that we're here in this space because of a supremacy culture and whiteness that has cultivated a country and a world that doesn't honor how people originally showed up to live on this planet.
Are you going to go off topic?
I was sorry. I was about to bring it back to me because I Googled St. Christopher because of course I did.
Of course, do it.
So like, not only is St. Christopher the patron saint of traveling, which I'm right, I am also the protector of people from epilepsy, lightning, and thunderstorms.
Bam.
So I saved us that day.
Did you?
I mean, not me, but like.
Which time? Which time? Tell that story.
So we were hanging out.
While you tell that story, I'm going to go pee.
Okay, so we were hanging out at our friend's porch. What neighborhood of Charlotte was it, though?
Wesley Heights.
Wesley Heights. There we go. We were in Wesley Heights, Charlotte.
5 minutes from my house.
Yeah, so we were hanging out on their porch, drinking some wine, smoking, just hanging out. And we're like, oh, it's a thunderstorm. So let's sit outside under their balcony, like under their front porch and like watch the storm. And it literally stopped raining. And so we just like kept talking and then like, like getting into conversation. And then literally out of nowhere, there was a tree that was like 25 feet away from us and it got hit by lightning.
Oh my God.
And like literally we saw the lightning, saw the tree explode and heard the sound all at the same time.
Oh, wow.
To the point where like a part of the tree branch was, what's the right word? It like exploded onto the porch and like almost hit us.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so I saved them.
And you saved them how?
Because I'm the patron saint of protecting people from lightning.
Oh, okay. So you're the reason that when it exploded, nobody died. Not
Correct.
That you did anything, just your presence, your mere presence.
Now, right, because I'm named after St. Christopher. So my parents did like the sacrifice to like name me after the saint.
Anyway, what came out of that is
I'm very much a Sagittarius, if anyone was wondering.
We now have a group text called Thunderstruck.
We do.
After that
no,
incident.
It's Thunderqueers.
Thunderqueers.
Thunderstruck queers, I think.
Anyway, why are we here, y'all? Why are we here today?
Yeah. Because I am the patron saint of.
Shut up.
I mean, we could do, what does Pride Month mean to you?
What does Pride Month mean to us? That's why we're here. Okay.
No, that's not why you're here. But I was just
That's a good question, though.
Oversimplifying, but yes, we can start there.
Oh.
You're here because we love you and your family, but
Oh.
this episode.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, it's quiet. The queers are quiet.
I know it's weird for us. We're normally not quiet.
I know what's going on.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't want to go first.
Yeah, but I'm still thinking.
Okay, so
you should go first. Yeah.
What does pride mean to me? I think it means a lot of things. Very recently have I contextualized, maybe in the last 4 or 5 years, like actually contextualized June being Pride Month. And so I think in preparation for this, one of the things I've been reflecting on is the aspects of my queer identity, but also how that intersects or aligns with my identity as a Black person in the context of so-called United States of America. And that pride was that we get pride from protest, from this daring to live out loud and boldly and unapologetically. And so for me, pride is that celebration, that commemoration of a bold and unapologetic, divergent even life that is disruptive to the status quo, but yet beautifies and enhances the spaces that queerness occupies.
Well, fuck, I'm supposed to follow that.
You got it.
Yeah, no. So I guess like for me, Pride Month, oh gosh, I'm about to use the name of the podcast, not even on purpose. It's permission to take space. It's because for so long as queer children, we hide ourselves inside, and we just like keep going deeper and deeper in, and like, so for me, Pride Month shows that like we're taking this space. We are. Yeah, I don't know. That's yeah. Just it's like the permit. Like yeah. See, this is what I'm not used to.
You can't mess this up.
I know. So, but like to me, like it's literally like it's breaking down the barriers that we put on ourselves, not that we put on ourselves. It's the barriers that society put on ourselves, and breaking those up and then like allowing ourselves to take up space. And it's, to me, like it's like for me, it's scary, but it's also very freeing. That like adrenaline rush of like, is this okay? Am I allowed to take up this space? And trying to navigate that, just because you've navigated your life so much of like, how do I make sure that I can stay invisible and not seen? I literally remember my freshman year of college, and like that's when like I actually came out, like I actually decided like I'm queer. I mean, like not that I decided I was queer, like that was the first time that like I put words out loud to someone. And I literally remember in my dorm room listening to Jennifer Hudson's song called Invisible, and it just talks about how like I don't want to be invisible anymore.
What was the catalyst for you deciding enough already? This is who I am, and I'm going to give voice to that.
My mom dying. Honestly, like my mom died when I was 17, and then 10 months later, I was in a different state. I was off in college with no family, and I was just like, no one knows me here. So let's just start new and start fresh, because they don't know the past. They don't know the high school me.
How long would you say? Okay, so you were giving voice to it then. So when you were articulating what Pride Month means to you, like there was a boldness that rose up in you. Your demeanor changed a little bit. How long did it take for you to get to that place? Not where I'm just kind of saying it, but where this is who I am, and I am bold and courageous in stating that unapologetically.
I mean, even it was a process. So I would say, like, even in freshman year of college, even when I did like come out into them, I would say it took me all of college to like build that confidence to be who I am now. I would say, like, when I graduated college, I was very unapologetically queer, to the point where I just didn't care anymore.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, like, I have other stories. Like, I literally, if I'm going to go down that, like, that route, it was, I knew I was queer probably like all the way back to like first grade. I knew something was different. I just didn't have the language for it. And so
Question, would you have used queer back then, or would you?
I probably would have used gay back then.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But I didn't know. I mean, I still didn't know. All I knew was like, I can make very, very strong bonds with in first grade. I can make very, very like strong connections with mostly all my friends were girls. All of my friends were. It was just very easy for me to do it. Just like connecting with them, talking with them. There was a discomfort with voice, but I wasn't able to name it, right? Like I wasn't able to say like, oh, I can't make friends with any boys. Like all my friends were just girls, and I just ran with it because I was 6, right? And so like I remember my Stephanie, my stepsister now, she called the house because like we were like, she asked me for like my phone number. I gave her my phone number. We were gonna try to like hang out after school. And so like I literally remember my mom saying like, you're too young to have a girlfriend. And it was like, but I don't, wait, what? But like, why can't I just have a friend? But like that stuck with me. And so it was like, that's when like, it was the process of like the deconstructing of, that's when not deconstructing, I'm sorry. That's when it was like, okay, I have to put up this protection. I have to put up this shield of like, I can't make friends with girls because that's wrong. Girls are not meant to be friends with quote unquote boys.
Ooh, there's so much there.
Right.
Just a couple steps back real quick.
Yeah.
Just wanted, if you all would share, for some, the terminology is new or different, or maybe described differently by different people. For you, how do you define gay and how do you define queer? For you, is that a difference? Will you talk about that?
Which one of us?
You can go.
Either one of you. I mean, Kris was talking, but I know you, Tommy, you had asked, would you have said gay or queer? So like, whoever wants to talk about it.
It's interesting. I don't think I've processed. In some ways, it might be a question for me that is also tied to gender identity. In some ways, and whereas I might contextualize being gay as identifying with maleness or manness, and a man that likes another man, or a woman that likes another woman. When I look at myself, and my current identification is as a queer pansexual person, it encapsulates the non-binary, for me, the non-binary gender identity, and also the fact that I love who I love,
right? Regardless of gender. And so it is, queer means strange. And queer is a politic. And so it's a divergence from that which is normal or normativity. And so I use queer to say that you can't fit me into a box. Whereas maybe when I identified more as gay, it was more still rooted in some sort of binary thinking for myself at the time. And that's not to say that other people who identify currently as gay are stuck in some sort of binary thinking. That's just how it was for me. And sort of when I examined how I was interacting in relationships with people, what felt like, yes, this is the language that I want to put to it and use for myself.
What about you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so I guess it's like for me, and this might be wrong, but for me, I use queer and I don't know, but I use queer and gay interchangeably, I guess. Pretty much. I still identify, I would say, as a gay person, but gay goes with male. Whenever they say like gay male, but I don't identify as a male, right? And so like you can also say gay non-binary, which is fine because I know I have friends who identify as a lesbian non-binary person. So but for most people, when they hear non-binary, they're like, but how are you gay? Because that's when two people of the same gender are attracted to each other. And so that's when I just say like queer, just because sometimes it's just easier.
Make them do the work.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah, it's like your dependence on a definition to contextualize me is you wanting to put me into a box.
Right.
And I don't have to acquiesce to the box that you want to put me in.
True. Yeah. Right.
Which goes back down the road to whiteness.
Yeah.
Did we mention that we're partners?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think we have. Yeah. You did at the beginning.
I think so.
You said we have Tommy and his
yes, and his partner Kris.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. These are the conversations that we have
normally, anyways.
So how long? So how long have y'all been together?
Oh, you should tell them the fun connections here.
So it'll be 5 years this November. But today, which is
4-year anniversary,
is the 4-year anniversary of me moving to Charlotte. Yeah.
Packed up a budget truck.
I was
like, not a U-Haul.
I mean, I was a teacher in DC. I didn't have U-Haul money. Like, let's be honest.
So, y'all, U-Haul to me is the cheap one. Like, I didn't know there was.
It's not.
It's not? Okay.
So it's actually a joke because
lesbians.
Like we typically say that lesbians are U-Haul.
It's like what?
I've caught up now. I've caught up.
And I don't know the time frame for what consists of U-Hauling it, but Kris and I dated for
8 months.
8 months before
long distance.
Or moved to Charlotte from DC.
And moved in. It was that. It was 8 months long distance.
Yeah.
So why didn't you move to DC, Tommy?
Because I'm Black and poor. I mean, poor of resource at the time, but not poor in spirit.
We're not going to affirm being Black and poor.
That's right.
You can affirm being Black, but we're not going to affirm because the universe has endless bounty.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So and I was probably in a different mindset at that time of very much. So the reason Olivia says that, y'all, is that we've been having conversations surrounding a scarcity versus abundance mindset, and so that's where that's coming from. and we should talk about that more on the podcast.
Yes, we should.
But it definitely just the cost of living and where I was financially at the time, it made more sense for Kris to move down. I was very clear at the beginning that I didn't want a long-term, long-distance relationship. I had done those, and I was like, it gets exhausting. I don't know. Like, we need to, if we're going to do this, we're going to do this.
And like unknown to Tommy at the time when we were already dating, but he knows now. I was already planning on like leaving DC. I just didn't know what city I wanted to move to, but I knew that being a teacher in DC was no longer sustainable for the cost of living and the pay that they give teachers. Mm-hmm. So I was already looking for an out.
Well, Tommy, your family's here.
We moved in Pride Month.
We did move during Pride Month. Yeah. I mean, we attended Pride in DC. Yeah, then we packed up my classroom, and then we moved here.
It was a fun and challenging 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. Maybe that'll come up later. There's a lot of stuff we could talk about, y'all.
There's a lot.
But yeah, my family's also here, and I'm a Cancer. Probably those forces also had something to do with the decision to remain here, as much as I don't want to admit it.
I get the family part. What's the Cancer part have to do with it?
Cancers are very concerned with home insecurity, and so like Charlotte feels, because like for me, family has been resource. It has been safety. It has been security. Even though there's like weird dynamics and weird relationships, but whose family isn't, right? And so that it was, that and I don't think I'm tied to staying here. And I can also acknowledge that we've created together really good relationships in a good life here. But it's not, so.
Tommy, a loss for words. Weird.
He's just being romantical.
Not really. No. I'm like, ask us more questions.
Got it. So do you guys feel like, because I'm old enough to be the mother of both of you, and so I'm just kind of thinking back to how old I was when I even understood the concept of gay. I mean, it's just like wasn't even talked about. So do you feel over the course of your short lifetime that like the generation coming up behind you is going to have an easier time because it's more in the forefront of conversations? I mean, when I look at TV shows now, I see it in TV, I see it in commercials. It's not the big issue that it was 7 years ago when I was in high school. So I just wonder, do you guys feel that? And do you feel like the generation coming up behind you won't have the same degree of pressure to hide themselves for so long?
Yes and no. Honestly, I feel like it's a very... Sorry, were you about to talk?
No, I love that you said yes and no.
Oh.
Like, yay.
You're doing great, Kris. Keep going.
So I would say it's very geographical. It depends on where you are. I would say like Midwest or like the Bible Belt, small town, Southern life. Yeah. Though like it's the struggles are still gonna be there, especially if you're rooted in Catholicism and evangelical Christianity. But then if you grow up in a like progressive city, it's gonna be a different story.
I would nuance mine to say, yes, it will be easier in some aspects and no in others. I think with any liberation movements, which queerness, again, going back to queerness being a politic, queerness is a liberation movement, pride is a liberation movement. And when we juxtapose that with other movements like the civil rights movement, which the queer liberation movement is an extension out of, there are things that are easier for me as a Black person. But now, in the context of 2020, there are also other challenges that we face. And it's even more difficult sometimes to name those challenges because the ways in which that oppression takes place tries to happen more covertly. And so I think on a couple fronts, you'll still have religions, as Kris mentioned, that religious institutions that are anti-gay, that are deeply homophobic, deeply transphobic, and oppressive. But also, I think there will be more freedom in acceptance. But what's left to question is, in what ways will those who hold power shift the ways in which they oppress individuals? And so the generations behind us will have their own struggles. I think about the generations before us through Stonewall, through the AIDS pandemic, which is still a pandemic today, in the 1980s, right? We've also had our struggles, but they've been different from the struggles of those who've paved the way before us. And so I don't know what it will look like, but I'm not going to say, no, absolutely no, we're not out of the woods in terms of queer struggle.
Yeah, but I'll also, yeah, I agree. Absolutely. All of that. But I want to go back to what you were talking about, Olivia, about since it's in the media more. So I would say the next generations, they'll have more like an easier time with the language. Because I didn't get the language of, I didn't get the language of gay until 8th grade, I want to say, like 6th, 8th, like 6th, like in middle school. And it was because I remember that was around the time where my parents allowed my brother and I to stay home on Friday nights when they went grocery shopping. And I remember sneaking into my parents' room and turning on Logo TV to watch the original Queer Eye for the Straight Guy. And that was the first time I got that language. I was like, Logo? I just came up on it from scrolling, and then that was on there. And then I literally remember every time they would go out, I would go watch it. So it's different now because you can literally go on Netflix and.
But even in mainstream, I don't watch much TV. I've actually disconnected cable, but the one TV show that I watch, which is a very popular one, and that's This Is Us. And so they've incorporated that into the storyline with one of the key characters, one of their daughters, and she is in middle school, and she comes out to her parents, and so they've woven a storyline around it. And then the other show, which is This Is Us Light, which tells you a lot about my viewing habits, and it's a million different
a million different reasons.
Something like that. A million little things.
Yes, that's it. A million little things. Same thing. So one of the young characters, they have him come, and so he's again middle school. With you being so much younger than me, I'm surprised. When you're saying you were 8th grade before you had language for it, that was me, and I could be your mama.
Yeah. So I was gonna say I grew up in a very
love you.
I grew up in a very small town. I don't think I ever gave the background. So I grew up in a small town in Connecticut of 10,000 people.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Which is why essentially why I left. There was not much there. So there was not much.
And also parents gatekeep. So
that part.
When you see parents at school board meetings and the current what we would say culture wars. Like those are the real consequences of in the home, where you don't see the abuse happening to children who are awakening to their identity as queer humans, right? Is they know something carnally, internally in their body is different, and yet they're trying to logistically get their minds to align with a certain culture or a certain way of being that their body is fighting with. And so if I think that's why it's so important for one, for representation, but two, also that we fight for institutional policy changes in which people can be exposed to these things and make their own decisions, because otherwise, we all get indoctrinated some way, shape, or form. Like we talk about deconstruction here on the podcast, and these are the reasons why, right? Because we're being raised in a particular or a certain way, and so that would be another thing that I would say is a challenge, or will continue to be a challenge even.
Yeah.
Well, Kris, one thing we have in common is that you were raised Catholic. I went to Catholic school for 3 years, and so I had to go to Mass every Friday. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. I still remember it all these years later.
Me too.
Yeah. But again, I'm like,
I can break out in a hymn right now if you want me to. I ain't a singer.
The fact that I remember it though is that's saying a lot. But I guess the thing that I find perplexing, and you're referencing the homophobia in the church. I've not been around Catholicism since the 7th grade, but you've got these institutions claiming to speak for God, okay, and then it's like, okay, so this behavior is abhorrent, and this behavior we're just going to pretend like it's not happening. So that's what I watch the Catholic Church do. We're going to pretend like that part's not happening. It's what the Southern Baptist Convention has done with all these cases against leadership, like 700 or something of them. I don't want to misquote that. And so I was just curious from the Catholic perspective, like how is that even reconciled?
I feel like they use the language of like priests are appointed by God. And so it's like when you're appointed by God, you can do no wrong. And so they will sweep everything else under the rug. That's my perspective of it. And so, I mean, it's just like pick and choosing out of the Bible of like what are we going to follow versus what are we not going to follow in the Bible.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I love that you took sort of the thought about sweeping things under the rug and the imagery of not doing wrong, because then I think of the queer body serves to disrupt that wholly, in that we choose to say you tried to hide us but you couldn't, and we're still here. Our existence exposes the thing that is tried to be covered over, and so in that way, the queer body it acts actually in a prophetic sense, and it's deeply holy and sacred.
Well, I appreciate you young people enlightening me.
It's always a pleasure.
That's why I have young friends.
We appreciate you being friends with us, and letting our friendship be an enlightening process, right? I suppose, right? And so, I mean,
I know that was you're looking to me to affirm you. I got it. That was, you said right, but I understood what you meant.
Yeah, I read a quote yesterday that said, if you're over 45 and aren't in relationship with somebody 30 or under, then you're like completely lost about, culture. There's the gist of it. I can't quote it exactly the way it was said, but there are nuances and shifts in culture that you're never going to understand. And the person who posted it, I was like, oh, I got a whole posse of of young friends.
Awesome.
I when I was growing up, I was so often the youngest one in the bunch, and so now I'm the oldest one a whole bunch of times. But I do learn from the younger generations, and I appreciate it.
I have to be very cognizant of that because I've always also been the youngest one in the bunch traditionally, and I'm having to consciously be intentional about hanging out with people younger than me as I get older. Like I turn 31 in a few weeks, and
Oh my gosh,
it's still very
so
young, right? It's still very young,
so
but at the same time, like I look at the one thing that weighs heavy on me is what is my responsibility to those who are coming after me. What is it that I need to create or show, or how do I need to live in a way that is going to that we won't have to have the same conversations that we're having right now today, that the people behind us can actually create something different, something better, something more liberatory for us to all exist in. So and I think we're really open about our relationship in that way.
So friends, Tommy and Kris, my family has had the honor of knowing them for a while, and in the last year, and let me say this as well, Kris, in all of his wisdom and lots of patience, has also tutored my children for reading. What were you going to say, Kris?
You said he.
You said he.
Dang it! See y'all. See y'all. I did it.
It's okay.
So what is the appropriate response when
Thank you
someone
for
calls you
letting
out?
me know. And Kris's pronouns are they, which actually fits really well with the point where I was going. But y'all, I've known Kris and we have an intimate relationship. I mean, not intimate. That was weird.
I mean, we are poly. So.
I mean,
I still like the dick though.
Oh, y'all can see me. I'm dying. So they have been tutoring our son and now our daughter this summer. But over the course of the last year, they changed their pronouns from he to they. And it has been a huge privilege to be in relationship with Kris and Tommy, and especially with Kris, because my children have had the experience of walking through the transition, and they still are, of somebody, Kris's life evolving and Kris discovering who they are. And it's been so beautiful because it's also caused us to, as a family, dig deeper and learn more about pronouns. And so, Kris, would you mind sharing and talking a little bit about how, well, I don't want to say how that came about. That sounds really weird. But just like that, the transition from in one set of pronouns to another.
Yeah, sure. Wait.
Can I just also point out it's not just a transition of pronouns? I don't want
Right.
to. I want to make sure that we don't reduce it to.
Please, thank you.
A transition of just words, because it's much deeper than that.
Thank you. Thank you.
But I just wanted to preface that.
No, that's good. That's good.
So with lovely therapy.
Therapy is
so I'm very much a heady person. I live in my head a lot, and part of my work and my journey with my therapist has been really like intentionally going like into my body and feeling and just feeling what feels right to me and stop living in my head, because a lot of the time I navigate my life through safety, like what's going to keep me the most safe, or the most liked, or the most right. And so I've never truly felt connected to the society's box of what it means to be a boy. And I'm going to bring it back all the way to 2013, 14. I was living in South Korea at the time, teaching English. And I remember it was the first time I was actually making friends with cis het boys, which I've never done before. Like, never really got that like deep connection with them. Gotcha. While also still having that deep bond with people who were assigned female at birth, right? Because I don't know how they identify right now. And I was invited to a girls' night, and I remember like one of my like, I've known this girl since I was in first grade, and we were both there in the same city. And she literally looked at me and said, "You don't have a vagina. Why are you going to a girls' night?" And in my brain, it was very much but I connect with them. They're doing things that I enjoy. I want to go. Yeah. And so I went. But at that time, I still had the language of the binary. So that put my whole brain process into like, am I transgender? To the point where, am I do I need to like, am I gonna have this, I'm sitting with the fact that, am I transitioning into she, her? And I didn't know, because that also didn't sit well with me, right? Like, I was like, I don't feel that. But I also don't fit in with all the things that guys, quote unquote, do. And then I moved to DC, and I didn't really have gay male friends either. Didn't really connect with gay men. And so it was just like, I don't know where I fit. I don't know what's going on, because I was living up here. Yeah. And I still up here as in my brain. Sorry, y'all can't see me on video. Because I was still living in the binary. I was still associating things as like, these things are feminine and these things are masculine, or these things are deemed male and these things are deemed feminine. Not until I would say like a couple years ago with my therapist, like we started deconstructing like, well, what things are like what does it mean to actually be a girl? What does it actually mean to be a man? And why are those things attached to those things? And once I like deconstructed the things, like painting your nails or watching sports Like when we say those things in our brain, we mostly associate painting nails, boom, girl.
Yep.
Watching sports, boom, man. And it's like, but that's not true. Right? That's just what society has told us. And so like once I realized that it's like there are things in this world that humans enjoy. And it doesn't matter the box that you are in. And so she had me do this exercise where you stand in front of the mirror, and this goes back to like the words things, but I know you don't want to, like, yeah, you say words, like make eye contact with yourself in the mirror and like call yourself something. And I remember the first time I looked in the mirror and I said the word like they, referring to myself, like they're a beautiful human. And I distinctly remember this fire that lit up in my chest for the first time ever in my entire life, of like, oh, this is what it feels like to be empowered by my own self. I feel empowered by me, which has never happened before, because it's always like I was always living in this world of like, I need others to fill my cup. And this was the first time where I was filling my own cup.
That is beautiful.
Yeah, that's
that is so powerful, Kris. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So what that brought up for me is my writing group is spending 6 weeks, and the whole thing is about listening to your body, listening to the wisdom of the body, and being quiet enough to hear what your body has to say. And so that's what I thought about when you talked about that exercise. And I think because our world is so noisy, that's why a lot of times we're not in tune with who we are. I mean, I've gone through, for me, that journey hasn't been tied to sexuality, but it's been tied to so many other things. And that's why, I'm the age I am. And a lot of times I'm in my rebellious teenager mode because it's like all of a sudden I'm just going to say exactly what I want to say. And, I am just going to be myself and feel comfortable in doing that. But that whole exercise she took you through and listening to your body and what feels right internally, I think there's power in that for all of us. And it's just not something we're conditioned to do. We live so much of our lives on just autopilot. We're just going. And so part of me just bringing more silence into my life is to do exactly what she had you do. I don't see the news. I'm gonna take a break from the TV. I'm still gonna be on social media, but I took Facebook off my phone because I want to be able to tune into the quiet. So I think that was wise counsel.
It's actually been a point of contention in our relationship at times, of tuning into the quiet.
Yeah, so like that was most of my work at therapy was, and still is, getting used to the quiet, because I was like, in a sense, now that I have the verbiage, like I was scared of what my body was going to say. I was scared of what my voice, like what the voices in my head were saying. And so music is a distraction. TV was a distraction.
Yes.
How does that also connect?
Oh, we're interviewing now.
Well,
Tommy asked me a question earlier today.
No, I'm sorry.
Tommy asked me a question earlier today. I was on one of my rants about something. Oh, about no as a whole sentence and learning how to say no. And so he sent me this message and said, how do you tap into your no? And my response back to him was, I feel it in my belly. I feel it in my gut. And so if I'm saying yes, sure, I'll do that, and my gut is churning and waves of nausea and it's on fire, then my body is telling me I'm not agreeing with what's coming out of your mouth.
I didn't mean to cut you off, Tommy.
Yeah, no,
you can
I mean,
ask a question.
The reason that I was going to pose this is just because we agreed, that we wanted to come on and be as authentic as possible. And even in listening to your body, there's also been alongside of that, there's been for both of us this deconstruction in fat phobia. Did you want to talk about that at all and the intersection of correlations? Because I was just thinking in terms of when we historically we've aligned ourselves more closely to gay culture, which is inherently deeply fat phobic. There's a specific model of what gay men should look like, and if you don't fit into that category, then you're outcasted. And that's been also something individually we've both had to work on in relationship for different reasons. Me to break down my biases and continually confront my biases as it relates to my internalized fat phobia and images of what what have been presented to me and indoctrinated in me about what are acceptable bodies and beautiful bodies, but also bearing witness to your journey through that as well.
So I would say I've been recently on a journey around with food and exercise and all of what, I don't even like the word exercise. I find the word exercise triggering to me, just because of my past experience with the word exercise. So let me start. So when I lived in DC, I was trying to fit into the stereotypical gay culture of the thinner you are, not the thinner you are, but if you have the six pack, if you have the ripped arms, the more attractive you are, the more people will find you attractive and sexy. And so I would eat a burger, cheeseburger with fries, right? And then in my brain instantly translate to that was this many calories, so I need to run between 5 and 10 miles the next day. And so I used exercise as punishment for the food that I ate. And so now it's gotten to the point where it's I've deconstructed how I view food. I'm at the point now where I'm listening to my body more of what is my body craving. And I've gotten to the point where it's I can wake up in the morning and I'm oh, I'm hungry. And not only am I hungry, but it's I want some protein. Or it's it's in the middle of the day and I'm I want a snack. I'm I'm feeling something crunchy. And so it's I'm at the point where it's it's now about the flavor profile and not about the food. So it's I can make a wide range of choices with crunchiness. Carrots are crunchy, chips are crunchy. And you know what? If I want chips that day, I'm gonna eat chips, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yes. Yep.
Right? And I'm not going to have chips be labeled as bad, because that is food that is nourishing my body, and I am grateful for that. And it also goes into a lot of the capitalistic white supremacy model of labeling food as healthy, right? And so if you can if you want McDonald's that day, eat McDonald's. That's your choice. Does it need to be labeled as bad? No, especially if that's your only choice. That's because it's you only have that amount of money, right, in your bank account, where that's what you can afford for that day. Well, you know what? You made a great choice of nourishing your body.
Yes.
I think what we do is, so instead of focusing on the McDonald's, what we don't focus on is the relationship of McDonald's and that food to the land and the chemicals that we put into the land and the preservatives that we use to put into our bodies and how we're out of relationship with the land. And so it's not the fact that the McDonald's or the burger is the issue, but really in America we have about 250 some chemicals that are allowed in our foods that aren't allowed in other countries because of what they do to the body, right? And so that's a conversation worth having versus labeling foods as good or bad.
Right.
Food is life. Food is energy, and we have to have a healthy relationship with food in any sort of or holistic relationship with food, even in any liberative practice. And so I think another aspect of Pride Month is especially for us as queer people, is uprooting those unhealthy relationships that seep into the way that we live our lives, or the politic of being queer, and say, oh, that's attached to capitalism. That this how we're labeling this is meant to force us into a certain behavior or normativity. And really, we're supposed, like, our existence is disrupting all of those things.
Yeah. And so I want to say, like, I was gonna move forward. Do you have anything else to say about food?
No.
Okay, so it's like I feel like my journey with food has gotten. I'm still on a journey, but I don't label food as good or bad right now, and so I'm very comfortable with my view on food, and I'm currently working on my views on exercise or movement, just because I use exercise as a punishment. And there's a part of me that is scared that I'm going to go back to the old model of exercise as punishment. Whereas now I use the word movement of, like, I want to move my body because it makes my body feel good. And so, like, I to me, that the difference between exercise and movement is huge, because it's like the other day, for the first time, I was like, I want to stretch. I want to stretch. It wasn't because it's like I need to stretch. I have to stretch to exercise. It's like I want to stretch. I want to stretch my body. And I just stretched my body. And I was so happy. And it was a different feeling. It was for the first time, it wasn't viewed as a punishment.
I love that. I can relate to that a lot. Exercise was not a punishment. Well, I mean, it was a shame tool. I had to do exercise because I allowed myself to, air quotes, fail in all these other areas. And so I exercised. It was never out of enjoyment. Yeah, I understand that. So, Tommy, you haven't talked as much. And so we've got a little bit of time left before you have to hop off. And if you would take a few minutes and just talk about, I feel like it's not as common of a term or as broadly used, but polyamory and what that means to you and for you and how it flows in and out of your life.
Yeah. So interesting. So polyamory or ethical non-monogamy has been a journey that Kris has chosen take alongside of me since essentially the beginning of our relationship. We started out while we were long distance. We use the term, I think, open. And then when Kris moved, we closed things up.
I had an anxiety attack, so I closed things up. Let's call it what it was.
Is your mic on?
Yes, it's on.
Yeah,
This is real life. This is real life. This is real life.
Which caused me to have an anxiety attack because I was like, what the hell am I getting myself
And then we
into?
were driving the budget car. And when I say we, I mean Tommy. I did not drive.
This was
Right.
literally on the drive.
This was not on the drive. This was
the moving.
Right. So, well, okay. First, let's add another layer of context to this. Even the only reason Kris and I started dating was because one of us gave one of the other persons an STI, sexually transmitted infection.
Yeah.
And like a good little person on my prep at the time, I went to go get tested, and they were like, "Oh, look, you have chlamydia, the clap, yay!" And so I had to go and notify my sexual partners at the time, and I was cataloging in my brain like, who have I slept with? Because queerness, there's a healthy sexual ethic, right? And even that statement is quite nuanced. That could take up a whole podcast about sexual ethic.
There's episode 2 and 3.
But Kris was one of the people that I had to call. And when I called, Kris was like, "I'm just shocked that you called." And I was like appalled that like, what do you mean you're shocked that I'm called? And I called. People don't call to tell like you need to go like get medicine or go get. I was like, I couldn't believe it. And
You lucky if you got a message on Grindr. Let's be honest.
Yeah. So, I was like, I don't want to carry that toxic behavior over. So let's have this conversation. And I think that sexually transmitted infections are overly stigmatized.
Tabooed.
There's super taboo. There's not sufficient education.
And then you have movies like Mean Girls. You get an STD and die.
Yeah, being a nurse in healthcare field, I've seen firsthand how patients are discriminated against, especially if they have HIV. It's like I've had people whisper to me, "Oh, this patient's HIV positive." I'm like, "Why are you whispering it?" Right? Or I've had surgeons change their practice of how we've been practicing to pass instruments so that we were, in a practice change of that nature actually increases your chance of sticking yourself with needles and things. And so the ways that discrimination pop up around these things based on simple, just pure ignorance, it was in that moment of having to have that conversation that I was like, all right, we need to have more healthy conversations around sexual ethic, to more open conversations. And I think it was really normal and easy to be open and non-monogamous living in separate cities. But the thought of taking that practice into living under one roof was different and scary. What do you? Yeah.
Oh, it was a lot. I mean, like, I'm moving to a new city. I didn't have a job at the time.
Didn't have friends here.
I knew Tommy.
Yeah. And so the compromise
That's a hell of a lot.
Right.
It took some time. I'm not going to say that I just like immediately was like, fine. Like I felt a sense of betrayal, especially given the timing of like, we had already rented this truck. We're about to load this truck up and move down. And 4 years ago today, you're telling like, is when we moved down, and like you're telling me that like we're about to get in the truck tomorrow, drive down 4 years ago, and like you're telling me this right now. And so I had, me being a Cancer and all emotional, I had to work through that whole process. We had our friends in DC at the time come alongside us and be like, well, why don't you do this and why don't you do that? And so we made the decision to close things up, to get settled, and it was supposed to be for 3 months, closed, and then trying it open for 3 months, and I think it was like a year and a half.
I think it was. Yeah. Sorry.
It was a year and a half of getting to know Kris in a different way, because I had gotten to know Kris long distance, but now is seeing the nuances in person. And but I think the place which we found honesty was, I knew, and part of this might have been attached to the trauma of my parents' relationship. Like this whole notion of, the Temptations made a song, Papa Was a Rolling Stone. They made that song for a reason.
Tommy told me at one point, like, I'm going to break up with you before I cheat on you. I'd rather break up with you before I cheat on you.
Yeah. And I knew that, like, that I wanted to have deep connection with other people, and that I just naturally formed deep connection with other people, and I wouldn't be true to myself if I like changed that about who I was. And so it was a lot of conversations, and so it was, what does polyamory, I think the question was, what does polyamory mean to me? I think the answer to that for me is that it's consistently shifting and changing based on what I'm learning and the experiences that I'm having. But it looks different relationship to relationship and person to person. But I believe that we all have the capacity to love multiple people. And we tend to put love in the category of this eros or erotic love. And that's just such a very narrow conceptualization of care and affection and love for people.
I do want to say that polyamory, right? Polyamory.
Or ethical non-monogamy, interchangeably.
What was I going to say? It forces you to love yourself. It forces you to do the inner work.
What do you mean by that?
Because it's like, I would say me falling in love with myself and me realizing that I have me.
Yeah.
And I am choosing to do life with you.
That part.
But like, I am good.
Yep.
Because I love me.
Yep.
Yeah, I think I've said to all the people I've been in a relationship with, like, I'll be fine without you. Like, it'll hurt when we're not together, but I'll be fine without you, because the foundation has to be this deeply rooted love of self and security with self, and the recognition that I need to know myself and be aware of who I am, so that I can share with you. And also this commitment to engage in that process together. Mm-hmm. So there's been really heavy conversations. Mm-hmm. Like Kris is a 6 on the Enneagram, and like 6s are loyalists, and sometimes that can be like a people-pleasing thing. And so sometimes I'm like, who are you? Choose your own identity. Stop just being the yes person to all the things that I want to do. Who is Kris? What did Kris want to do? And like, those have been really difficult and hard conversations. But I don't know if we would have had those conversations under a traditional relational model in which the identity of two monogamous individuals sometimes gets so intertwined that they don't know who they are without one another. I've kind of had this internal knowing that I've always wanted to have a sense of self, but also a deep love and sharing in a deep love of others. And there's probably a piece of that being kicked out of the church, right, forces me to reclaim like who am I outside of this institution that has provided me community and security for so long. And you have to turn inward and begin to interrogate the aspects of the places that you don't love in yourself. And so polyamory polyamory, non-monogamy, it is a orientation toward the limitlessness of love, but it's also an honoring of the boundary of where I begin and end, and you begin and end.
That is beautiful, and that is a perfect place to bring our conversation to a close for tonight, because there literally could be like 6 more parts to this conversation. Thank you all for being willing to be vulnerable and share about who you are, who you're becoming, who you've been. If you could offer, as cheesy as this may or may not sound, a word of encouragement, because I guess the one thing that I was thinking about, especially of not knowing who you are, like for those who are very intertwined or enmeshed in whatever type of relationship they may or may not be happy in, the finding who you are is such an important journey, and it's also pretty terrifying. And I just wonder if you could just each say just a word of encouragement about that.
I'll contextualize this by saying this is inspired by bearing witness, being in relationship and process with someone who was discovering who they were. And in that process, things just didn't work out for us. And I don't hold that against the person at all. I would never speak publicly ill about the person, and I still have a deep care, concern, and compassion for the person. But I think what they taught me is that sometimes in finding yourself, you have to say fuck everything else. Yeah. And that's okay. And it's going to hurt people. It's going to cause tension. It's going to cause disruption. But it's what you have to do to tap in to a personal liberation, to a personal freedom. And so there's famously that statement of it gets better. Yes, it gets better if we're able to change the circumstances and environments which are oppressing us. And that's why I would go back to this question of what does pride mean to us? It's that reflection for me, and that reminder that my calling, my demand is to live boldly and out loud for those that can't do it for themselves, and to say, yes, you can, and there is hope, and there is a community and a family and love waiting for you as you navigate and push through that traumatic and tumultuous time. That there are people with open arms and open hands waiting, eager to hold you, and that you are not alone, even if in your body you feel so incredibly alone, but you're not, and you are deeply and beautifully made and loved and cherished. And for those that can hear my voice, if you ever need a listening ear, reach out to me. We're in this together.
What about you, Kris?
Choose yourself. Choose you. And whatever that means, like, choose to trust yourself and listen to what is right in your body. Time has a way of being hard. Yeah, that's how he's saying, like, hard in the moment. But choosing yourself and whatever that may look like to you gets you through those hard times.
One thing that I appreciate and admire about you and Kris, and so I've only known this version of you, the comfortable in your own skin version, but it's there's this quote that says the freest people are those with nothing to hide. And so as I listen to you guys, give voice to this and articulate this and just, lay it all out there, this is who I am, this is how I function, this is how I think, this is how I feel, and I'm not going to have any shame in it. And so my generation was just so engrossed in political correctness and what you do and you don't say. And that's one of the things that I'm still working through breaking out of. But there is such a freedom in being who you are. Then there's no confusion. And so that's what I see in the both of you in this iteration of yourself, is that you're free because you have nothing to hide.
I refuse to ever go back into the closet. It feels good out here.
Yeah, I refuse to not take up space.
So,
yeah.
Y'all know how to contact me, but if people actually want to soak in your awesomeness, love, how will they contact you if that's something you consent to?
Yeah, so my Instagram handle for now, I'm kidding. My Instagram handle is Kris, CHRIS, Michael, MICHAEL 03. And then it's also the same on Twitter as well. Yes.
Thank you, loves. Thank you.
Thank you for letting us talk.
Right. Thank you for listening. I did this.
You did it.
Yeah.
Proud of you.
Mm-hmm. I'm proud of me.
You should be.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us on Permission to Be. You can learn more about today's guests by going to permissiontobepodcast.com. We are also on all the social medias. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Permission to Be Podcast or Twitter at permission2_be. We would love to hear from you and let us know who you might want to have on as our next guest. If you will leave us a rating and review, in your review, you can put the name of people or persons who you think might be a great guest for the Permission to Be podcast. We hope you have a wonderful day.